Workplace equality matters because until you can bring your whole self to work, the range of possibilities for you and your career can't be realized.
Good morning and welcome to the 2014 Out and Equal Workplace Summit here in the beautiful city of San Francisco.
San Francisco, here is your wandering ones.
We have had such a grassroots movement, the LGBT community. It's been one by one by one by one. It's been groups like Out and Equal and others. It is amazing. Let's go! Be alert!
And the uncommon leader that you are has also changed the lives of so many people around the world, and we are all the better for it.
We are transgender. We are bisexual. We are gay. We are lesbian. We are allies. Hear us roar.
We want everyone to be all they can be, and not only a safe place, but a place where their uniqueness, their difference, is encouraged and celebrated and rewarded.
She came from a place in her heart where, of course, she knew that she was a girl all those years, but didn't have access to that life, to that language, to those kinds of intimacies that she would have had as a young girl. So I, of course, instantly started to cry.
This provocative television, like I said, I can't believe they let me on TV, but we really take a look at homophobia in a way I hope that will turn and change the minds of people that think that we're less than.
And to share our Negro. If you let me see your peace signs in the air, spread the love, spread the word, reach back. You got the power, 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 power. Hey, hey, yeah.
Welcome, everyone. This is Pat Bailey, Director of Training at Out and Equal Workplace Advocates, and we welcome you to our 2014 Virtual Summit Series. And this is a broadcast audio call, so you should have your computer volume turned up or use your headsets. You can use the chat function on the left side of your screen to be able to chat in questions and comments during the call. We will have some time for Q&A, and would love to hear from your opinions ideas. We'll also have a couple of polls coming up where after you click the answer on the screen, hit submit, and you'll be able to see the results of the group. We've got about 70 folks on the call right now. The information is here, and if for some reason you have to drop off early or if you have a hard time hearing, the session will be recorded, and I'll send out an information email after with the slides and the link and all the contact information for the presenters so that you can follow up with them. So our topic today, we're going to be talking about Pledge Week, proven ideas to jumpstart your ally program. And in a couple of minutes here, we'll give Corey, Annie, and Chris a chance to introduce themselves. I want to thank PepsiCo for working on that and being able to present for us. And I guess a couple announcements coming up. A couple folks are mentioning they're hearing some echoing. If you've got a second line or if you've got a computer on or a phone on, it can also cause that. So check that if you're hearing that. Thanks, Ellen. Coming up next week, our next virtual summit series, well, that was today. Next week, we're going to have Brand You, Bring Your Fabulous Authentic Self to Work. Our monthly town call on the 26th will be our summit kickoff. We're going to talk all about all the outies and the workshop proposals, so that's a good call. It'll also be recorded. We'll continue into March with Clorox on their virtual summit series. And then our monthly town call is the rescheduled one we had from January from Marsh McClellan Companies on LGBT global mobility. If you're in San Francisco or want to travel this way, we are having our Executive and Emerging Leader Forum. You can sign up if you know any out executives. Let them know and let them know about this event. It's a great opportunity to network. And then that ends that week with our Momentum Gala celebration here, March 26th. Lots of information up on the web that you can find out about. And then we're hoping to kick off our Out and Equal University online training series in April, followed up by our Building Bridges. And if you haven't got it on your calendar yet, it's not too early, October 5th through 8th. So we'll find all that information out. So let's go ahead and get a couple polls so we can kind of see how where everybody is. So please come back to your screen. And then how do you identify? Do you identify as LGBT, straight ally, not sure, prefer not to answer? Go ahead and click on your answer there. We have almost 90 folks on the call now, so we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to step up on that and that. So it looks like we've got about 60% LGBT, 40% straight allies. So good mix on the topic with that. I'll give everybody just a few more seconds to click on that and get their answers in. And we're kind of about 56-43. So great. Thanks for that. And now our second question is more specific. Are you looking to create an ally program in your company? Yes, just starting out. Yes, have one but needs help. No, and it might be a long-range goal. No, and there are plans to create one. Not sure, prefer not to answer, or not applicable. Again, select your answer, hit submit, and we'll see the results come up. We see a good mix there. It looks like a lot of folks do have an ally program in your company but need help. That's about 50%. We've got about 33% where we're just starting out. Again, we've got about 2/3 of the folks who have responded so far. I'll give you just a few more seconds. This is a great background and basis for our presenters to be able to use this in the call. So it looks like we're about there. 46% need help, 30% just starting out. I've got about 12% on the call, not applicable. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over to the slide and get everybody going. And Corey, why don't you go ahead and get started and introduce yourself.
Great. Thanks, Pat. Hi, everyone. My name is Corey Calvin. In the room today with me, I have Annie Newbo and Chris Horton. We are going to walk you through a summit or presentation that we presented in San Francisco in November at the Out and Equal Summit. And before we do that, I just want to introduce myself. I have been with PepsiCo for about 4 years now, and I work on the Gatorade brand. And I am a current member of the board for our LGBT group here at PepsiCo called Equal.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Newbo. I've been at PepsiCo for almost 19 years now. I work in IT supporting a finance application, and I'm a straight ally.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Horton. I'm also in the IT department, and I've been at PepsiCo just about as long as Annie Newbo has, so for quite a while now. And I am also on the board of our Equal LGBTRG. I've been on the board for about 2 years now.
And all three of us were instrumental in leading the program that we're going to outline for you today. It's great to be in front of you. Please ask us any questions along the way. We'd be happy to answer all of them, and we'll get started. So first, I want to level set what we're going to cover, because I know that there are a lot of different ideas out there that many corporations have already begun to implement. I know every situation is different. Every company is set up differently. So I'm going to, today just kind of outline what we're covering. This is a case study. It's a step-by-step approach. I know that the majority of the people on the call, it sounds like, half of us, the people on the call had an ally program but wanted some help, and then a third were just starting their program out. So that's about, almost nearly 80 to 90% of everyone on the call that's looking for some sort of idea or ideas to implement at your company. So again, we're gonna lay this out more tactical in terms of approach and outlining it step by step. This is an ally program that we ran last June here in the Chicago location. It was a pledge, and we'll walk through exactly what all this means in a little bit later. It was a pledge for allies. So we realize that the definition of ally can be different at many different locations. For the purposes of this presentation, we are saying that an ally is someone that's a straight ally. And that was our core target here with our program. Again, our ultimate goal was to create a more inclusive workplace and educate people and our colleagues within our organization of what an ally is and what our expectations would be of those allies. We realize that, again, like I said, every situation is different, every company is different, every structure is different, so one size does not fit all. For instance, here in the Chicago office, we have a 17-floor building that's only PepsiCo employees, so everybody that walks in the building comes in about one door, and they all leave out of one door, and everyone in the building is a PepsiCo employee. So I know that may not be the same in your situation. You may be sharing office space. You may have a small little suite with a larger group of offices. And of course, your organization may not be set up the same way. We are a very large company with many business units operating out of one location. So we're set up with many different layers of management, HR, IT. Again, this may not apply at your organization or company. So just keep that in mind, because what we're going to present to you today are a bunch of different ideas that you don't have to run this program from soup to nuts and start to finish like we're going to outline today. You can actually pick pieces of information out of this presentation that you can quickly implement within your situation. At the very end, I know Pat is going to send out, at sometime shortly after our presentation, a recap of this call, and we will have our email addresses in that email that Pat will send out. So feel free to either ask us questions online today, but we'll also feel free to send us an email, and we can create some ongoing dialogue. So I'll jump in. That was just, I wanted to cover off on kind of level set of what we'll cover today. So the different sections that we'll walk through, I'm going to briefly go through PepsiCo as an organization, and along with kind of introducing how our LGBT group is set up here at PepsiCo. We'll then dive into what our ally program was, what Pledge Week, how it began. We will then next go into Pledge Week itself, of what people actually did during the week. The fourth piece we'll walk into is our marketing communications plan, obviously a very key pillar of this program. And then we'll round it out at the very end with some challenges that we faced and some next steps we're going to take at PepsiCo. So first, I'm going to start off with just introducing PepsiCo, the organization. PepsiCo is a $66 billion company with more than 250,000 employees, one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. An interesting fact here is our food and beverages are consumed nearly 1 billion times each day. in nearly every country around the world. PepsiCo is made up of 3 global businesses. We have a beverage business, a snacks business, and a nutrition business. And you probably are familiar with a lot of our brands there. You can see in the photos, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Quaker Oats, Tropicana, Gatorade. Those large brands generate more than $1 billion of retail sales every year. So quickly moving through, we just want to outline at a high level PepsiCo's Performance with Purpose, which is a long-term strategy that our CEO has put into place for all employees. I'm not going to drain all the content on this slide, but I think the main takeaways here that PepsiCo employees live every day, and part of that is creating a safe and inclusive workplace for our employees globally, which is very true to walking into a PepsiCo office location. This is something that we value throughout all layers of the organization. From a diversity standpoint, we have a bunch of characteristics that make each of us up, and I think the main ones to point out for this specific situation is that gender identity and sexual orientation are included in our diversity statement. So PepsiCo is committed to workplace equality. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is very vital and key to our success. We believe that everyone comes to work with many different perspectives, and that builds employee engagement, fosters creativity, and fuels innovation. We definitely strive to bring into our organization and hire the brightest talent that we can find, and we're focused on building that strong and diverse talent pool, as well as at all levels of the organization and in our leadership. We are a longtime partner of Out and Equal. We were a titanium sponsor at the 2014 summit with over 80 people in attendance. We also have a 100% corporate equality index for the year 2014 on the Human Rights Campaign. And we were one of the first corporate sponsors of Glad Spirit Day last year. So moving into our LGBTA organization here at PepsiCo, it's called Equal, and you can see the logo at the very bottom of the slide. We are one of 11 employee resource groups at Pepsi. Our primary focus and kind of programming, if you will, is we have monthly member meetings. Ally programming is becoming a larger part of our initiative, as kind of evidenced with the Pledge Week initiative that we're going to walk you through today. Spirit Week, we do a lot of community service in various locations around the country, and then of course partnering with other LGBTA organizations and groups in the locations and the cities that we are located. And then lastly, from a hierarchy perspective, we are set up, we have equal chapters in our main hubs around the country, Chicago being one of them that houses our Gatorade, Tropicana, and Quaker brands. Our Frito-Lay headquarters are in Plano, Texas. They also have a chapter. Bradenton houses our Tropicana plant in Florida. And then in our New York area, PepsiCo, or Pepsi, Mountain Dew, and our other CSD brands are located in New York. Those hubs then all roll up into a larger steering committee that's then rolled up into an executive sponsor level, which sits on our CEO's board. So that rounds out PepsiCo. We would like to then jump into the actual Ally program that we've started at PepsiCo and how it was formed.
All right, so I'm going to talk about why we thought we needed an Ally program. But first, before we get into that, I wanted to level set on the definition of an ally. I think it's probably safe to say that virtually everyone on this call is familiar with the concept of an ally, what an ally is. But what you'll find is that people who aren't typically involved in LGBT organizations, supporting them or being a member of the LGBT community may not or probably don't know what an ally is. So that was important for us to define it. And you'll find that when I was talking to friends and neighbors about the program here at PepsiCo and about presenting at Out and Equal, a lot of them didn't know what an ally was, but once you describe it to them, then they will recognize themselves in that definition. So what we wanted to do is define ally in a workplace context, and as Corey mentioned before, we defined it as a straight ally. So our definition that we came up with was an ally is a straight individual who believes LGBT people should experience full equality in the workplace. So we understand that there could be, a gay person could be an ally of a lesbian can be an ally of a bisexual person or a transgender person, but what we wanted to do is focus our program on straight allies who supported the entire LGBT. So once we had this definition, we put it on all of our marketing materials, and so that way people throughout the company would be able to see this definition and recognize themselves and then want to participate in it. So why did we want to have a program? We recognized that allies have a lot of unlocked potential in leading acceptance of LGBT. And they can have a lot of influence on other potential allies, as well as allies that may not, or straight people that may not think about being an ally, or people who maybe would like to be an ally but don't know about it. I think they can identify a lot with the straight allies that have identified themselves. So the issue that we found was that we knew that they had a lot of potential, but we didn't know who these allies were. Sometimes they didn't know themselves that they were allies, and even for the allies that did know that they were allies, they may not have known what they could do to help the LGBT community. So that was the whole reason behind why we thought we needed a program. We thought that there were a lot of allies out there, they were just underutilized. What we needed to do was identify them, educate them, and show them how they can be visible. In addition, there's a business case associated with this. It wasn't just sort of like a feel-good program that we wanted to execute at our company, but we did some research and found various business cases that did show that when an LGBT person feels more accepted in the workplace, they'll be much more likely to be loyal employees, will be more productive in the workplace. And the opposite is true as well. When people don't feel as welcome, they are definitely more likely to leave the company and seek. So on this next slide, I'm going to talk not only about the mission statement, which you'll see here, but also about the importance of having a subcommittee help you execute your program. So this program that we did last year was our first big ally program that we had done. So what we wanted to do is develop a mission statement for the overall ally program. The mission statement's not necessarily designed for the Pledge Week event, but it's just for ally programming in general. We wanted to have a mission statement. So we also, in order to do that or come up with that mission statement, that was one of the first tasks that we had our subcommittee to do. So what I wanted to stress here is that a subcommittee is very important to have. It's going to be for anyone trying to develop one of these programs, if you try to do it on your own or just with like one or two people, it's probably going to be very difficult. So what we found is that having a subcommittee, dividing it up into teams, and assigning leaders to various tasks makes it a lot easier and allows you to develop your program that much more quickly. So developing this mission statement was pretty much the first task that we did with our subcommittee. And the reason we wanted to do a mission statement is that we wanted to provide a framework for our program and remain focused so that we could tell that everything that we were doing along the lines throughout the coming months was, made sense and was aligned with that particular mission statement. So as we developed this mission statement, I kind of want to walk through an approach that we did. It helped us since we kind of developed this program under a tight time frame. So our approach for the mission statement, which can be applied to other activities as well, was instead of having 10 to 12 people on our committee just sit in a room and kind of possibly go in circles trying to create a mission statement, what we did was we met as a group. We talked about the key pieces to any kind of mission statement, to define who you are and to convey the direction of your group in a concise way. And then we assigned 3 different people to go off on their own and write a mission statement. Annie Nouveau here was actually one of the people who wrote one of the samples. And then we came back as a group a week later and took the, what we thought were the best pieces of each, and then quickly came up with one final version that we were all happy with. So that really, I think, was a really efficient way to take advantage of the subcommittee and come up with something that we all agreed upon pretty quickly. So the mission statement itself, I'll go ahead and read it. We are straight PepsiCo Chicago associates, fully support the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. Our goal is to encourage all LGBT colleagues to bring their whole selves to work, committing ourselves to visibly advocate for equality and mutual. So a couple of things I want to point out here. You'll notice that we said Chicago specifically because this program that we developed was just for our Chicago office. And we also use the word visibly, and because that's really one of the most important things you can take away as far as any ally program is that you want to make your allies visible. So on this next slide, I'm going to briefly touch on Pledge Week itself. This is what we're really going to be talking about throughout the rest of the presentation, but this is just a very high level of what we did. So basically, it was 3 days last June where allies could take a pledge, and we wanted it to be a simple and powerful way for them to be able to show their support and to be visible at the same time. They also had to join an online community, which gave us a way to immediately grow our network of support. And at the end of the Pledge Week, we had a celebration with a speaker, recap the whole week, and have a celebration with all of the allies. So this next slide is the pledge itself. So you can see it there. This is the cornerstone of our program, obviously. This was not something, this pledge itself was not rocket science, as you can see. We wanted to make it simple. Our goal was to have action items, things that were easy to remember, and we wanted to focus on visibility and education. So there were 3 pieces to the pledge. One is come out. I will show my support for LGBT equality. Speak out. This is about speaking out about anti-gay remarks, and join in incorporating actions to show your equality. So this next slide just shows some various highlights from our week. We had 1,100 flyers that we distributed in our lobby the morning of the first day of the event. We had 65 volunteers and contributors who helped in various ways. Had 350 video views, so we'll show you a video that we created as part of our marketing campaign later in our presentation today. We had 65 people who attended our celebration at the end of the week, and the number that we're most proud of is this 475 number, which is the amount of people that took the pledge. We were honestly expecting maybe 200, 250 people, and the turnout was much more positive than we anticipated, and that represents almost 40% of our building here in Chicago, so we were very, very proud of that. That wraps up this section, and next we'll move on to Annie, I think, is going to talk about Pledge Week.
So I'm going to go into the specifics of our Pledge Week, which Chris talked about was in June of last year. And we had decided to do the Pledge Week over 3 total days. And the actual pledge we wanted people to take during high traffic times such as lunchtime and in 2 different locations in our building. We work in a 17-floor building in downtown Chicago, and we have a cafeteria as well as a lobby. So those were our high traffic areas as well, especially during lunchtime. And so we were, with the pledge, I'll go through the exact steps that we did and what we, how we set up the Pledge Week during these times and these locations. On the next slide, This is actually what our pledge looked like. We did do the pledge. We had kiosks where we had computers set up by some of our ally volunteers where people could actually take the pledge online. And the pledge, as Chris talked about, had 3 sections to it that we wanted people to click, and then we wanted them to enter their name and their email address so we can keep track of who the allies were, who signed up to be allies. And we also wanted to give them the opportunity to either use their name or photo or decline to use their name or photo in any ally communications we were going to do right after the pledge week and then going forward in our location. We also had paper copies of this pledge, just in case we had a bottleneck of people. You can see in the picture there's a couple kiosks or computers we had set up where people were doing it online, but because it was during these high traffic times, we needed to actually have people do paper pledges, and then we would enter that in the information online for them. This next slide just shows some pictures of some of the times. This is our cafeteria where we had people taking the pledge. And then in the lower left-hand corner, I'm going to talk about this banner that we had that we wanted all the allies who took the pledge to actually sign. So you'll see, and then in the bottom right, there's a picture of, we're putting together some, what I'll talk about, an ally swag bag that we gave out to people who signed up to take the pledge and become an ally. So this is this slide shows the actual banner so that we wanted everyone to sign when they were taking the pledge. We had it out in our cafeteria on this long table. You could see a couple people could sign it at the same time. And so right below is a picture of the actual banner that we had after everyone signed it. And there's some, we have about 12 ERGs here in Chicago. Those are employee resource groups. And we wanted to gain the support of all the ERGs, and we actually had the ERGs sign the banner with their logo. So you can see a couple of, one of them is at the bottom middle part of the banner is PAN, it's our Pacific Asian Network. So we had all 12 ERGs support and be excited about signing the banner. The banner itself, we actually partnered with an LGBT-owned company to donate an 8-foot wide by 4-foot tall gator board banner. So on the banner you can see we had the writing, we signed the Ally Pledge, and we incorporated the Ally logo on it as well. On this next slide, this shows some of the things that we did to educate and then just have some visibility to being an ally. So we gave everybody a swag bag, which you can see a picture of the actual reusable bag. We gave everybody also an ally card that they could put in their cube, their workspace location. And one of the main things we really wanted to do was create this badge buddy that had the Ally logo in the front, and then on the back was we had the mission statement, the Ally, why people were signing up to be an ally on the back. We also added in a welcome letter, just again to further educate all associates on the importance of being a visible ally, especially at our location. So we thought this was a good way to just give people something for signing up to be an ally. We actually ran out of our materials. I think we ordered about 250 because, as Chris talked about, we expected maybe around that many people to sign up, and we had to reorder the ally cards as well as the badge buddies.
So I just want to chime in here. I think this is a really important slide and takeaway for you at your organization or company in terms of visibility and education. I think those are really the key things, like Annie had mentioned, and really the crux of an ally program itself. So really to receive these things and distribute these items that you see on the slide in front of you was really key to expanding visibility throughout the building. And all the things, this was all orchestrated so people could show visibility at their cube, which I think goes a long way of creating those one-on-one conversations and helping people in your organization feel comfortable about approaching different people. And then the badge buddy also, I see this, we have to wear our, like many organizations, our security badge out on our person every day when we walk in the building. So on the back side of this is our badge buddy, and I probably once a week, I am in the breakfast line or I'm somewhere in the building in a meeting with someone I don't know, and I can see their ally card, and I think it's a great way to either strike up a conversation or just know in that meeting that that person is comfortable with a very, with very diverse backgrounds. And so I think that's comforting to all of your employees when they see that. So that's why it's very key to be visible in these situations, which is why we wanted everyone that signed the pledge to receive that. And again, this is a very, I think, important slide to kind of pause at and kind of take in. And, we'll take anybody up in the offer. If they want graphics in these forms that we've created, we'd be happy to send them to you. So that way you don't have to recreate the wheel if you want to use our logo, which we'll get into in the next section.
We also handed out stickers that said, "I took the Ally Pledge," so it's kind of like when you vote, you get a sticker, and it just was a form of mobile marketing to show the colleagues that they took the pledge. So that was actually a pretty big hit, and a lot of people were wearing stickers during the Pledge Week. They took the pledge. We had a Pledge Week celebration at the end of Pledge Week, and again, it was just reinforcing the Ally education and ways to just show that ongoing visible support. We were able to get a speaker come and discuss personal experiences as an ally. The celebration, we had raffles, took a group photo of our Pledge Week banner with a lot of our volunteers on this ally committee. So it was a really great celebration to close that Pledge Week. Just a couple other pictures that you'll see the banner again from our celebration. A few more pictures, and then you can again see there's so many signatures on the banner. And next we'll talk about marketing and communications. Corey, you'll start that.
Great. So, we're at a point now where we've kind of spoken about PepsiCo in general and our kind of LGBT organization. Then we've talked about, the need for an ally program and advancing that kind of ally programming each year, because we've had something around for a number of years for LGBT individuals, but we haven't really defined allies, and I think this is becoming a much bigger and bigger part of, it's been a recent trend in many companies and being able to be visible. So that's really the essential part of the Pledge Week program that we put on. And obviously, Annie just walked you through kind of how someone would walk through and take the pledge, sign the banner, get the swag bag, get a sticker, right? And so all that visibility and education that we provided to them in the welcome letter for them to take back with them. So that way we don't have to constantly remind them. They should already have gone through that kind of informal training, if you will, in that brief minute to 2 minutes they interacted with the Pledge Week situation. But of course, if any of you are in marketing or communications, you know that to get the number of people aware of what you're trying to do, you need a strong marketing platform and marketing background. So I'm going to walk you through next all the details around how we started marketing this program, which began about a month before the actual week took place. So our goal really was to reach the maximum number of people here in Chicago. We have about 1,300 to 1,600 employees at any given time within the building. And our goal was to reach as many people as we could with our marketing campaign. We realized that not everyone was going to be able to take the pledge, but what we wanted to make sure is that everyone at least knew what we were doing and give them the opportunity to do so. Because if they didn't take the pledge, at least we were still educating them somehow, some way. So it was a consistent and very clear message throughout the entire marketing campaign, all the way leading through Pledge Week. So again, educating everyone on what is an ally. Again, like Chris said, there's many different definitions of allies within the LGBTA world, community. But when you kind of step outside of that bubble, if you will, and you're with your colleagues, not everyone has heard of what an ally actually is. So I think even having the word visible and being able to define it in some way, I think is very critical to the success of any ally program. And lastly, I think we wanted to create some excitement around what an ally is, and obviously then how does that translate within a program year after year after year. So I'm going to walk you through these kind of steps down below of how it started. We started with a poster and video campaign. We created a video. We had a newsletter that went out that goes out to all of our employees here in Chicago. We put table tents in all the common areas. Again, meeting with all of our employee resource groups was very key to the success. And if you have employee resource groups at your company, please leverage them. And then on the week of the day of the actual pledge, we hand out a flyer. And I'm going to go double click into each one of these, just because I think it's important to understand what we did and how you could then leverage these ideas within your organization. Before I double click into the poster and video kiosk kind of campaign that started 4 weeks prior to Pledge Week, I want to briefly take a pause in terms of branding. Within PepsiCo and with any other CPG company and most brands around the world, you've created an iconic brand that many people recognize wherever you go and you know what it stands for. And that's really what we wanted to create, and something that would last for a long time. So we leveraged an internal graphic designer to basically create a logo for us that we would include on all of our marketing and communications. Our logo, you can see there in the middle of the page on the left-hand side, is equal with the rainbow dots in the middle. So we wanted those rainbow dots to be consistent with an ally logo, because we didn't want there to be too much confusion around, the equal organization that's been around for a long time that everyone knows is the LGBT organization. And then the now new ally program that we're launching that's a part of, LGBT issues. And so we wanted to tie the two together, so that's why the dots are consistent on the ally logo. Also, the second part is we wanted to create a circle around that with the rainbow colors to send kind of a more community aspect of when you look at it, a circle is more welcoming and more of a community aspect. And also it fits in different situations, whether you're putting it on a t-shirt or a poster or a card. It fits on many different sizes. And then lastly, from a muted perspective, we work with obviously we have manufacturing facilities located around the country. And yes, we are located in Chicago, which is a more progressive, liberal, city. However, we do realize that there are locations around the country and even around the world that may not embrace the diversity message quite the same as people do here in Chicago or in other locations. So we, instead of being more bright and vibrant, which is the rainbow flag that we're used to seeing, we wanted to mute the colors that still had the kind of pride symbolism, but yet was more muted. And that way it wasn't so loud if you took this type of concept to a manufacturing facility or a more conservative location. So I want to start here with the poster and video kiosks. This started 4 weeks prior to actual Pledge Week. Again, realizing that not every building or every office location is set up the same way. We have, like I said, our 17 floors here in Chicago. We have senior leadership on pretty much every floor, so our goal was to get senior leadership involved. Again, I think this is another takeaway from this presentation, is senior leadership is very key to any programming that you want to do to make sure that they are linked in to what your goals are. So we found the highest level executive on every floor because most of the people on that floor kind of reported up through that senior leader. And we asked them if they would take the pledge and be visible on a poster within each floor. And pretty much we had resounding support. Everyone said yes. We didn't get any pushback. So we customized it by floor, and you can see there on the right-hand side a picture of our poster. It says, "I sign the pledge, will you?" with their photo. So again, visibility, you can see visibly that this senior leader is an ally, and hopefully everyone on the team, his team, can see that. It has a quote of, why he's an ally and what diversity means to him. It shows his name, his title, and then this is the first time that people are actually seeing the logo and the words ally anywhere in the building. So this was very key for us to kind of create a kind of a teaser campaign to have people start asking questions like, I signed the pledge, will you? Okay, that's interesting. What is the pledge? What do you mean? Again, this is just our first kind of interaction with everyone in the building. And then down below at the very bottom, you can see the Ally logo with our mission statement. The smaller image, we have video kiosks that loop slides in throughout the day, and so we wanted to have a smaller version that looped in these slides so people could see that no matter where they were in the building. So the Pledge Week video, again, understanding that everyone has different time, capacity, and resources available to them. However, one thing, we did have the luxury of having one of our internal media labs shoot this video at a high quality. However, I think if you're creative, and I'm sure you have people on your teams that are, or maybe you can seek out those people, and maybe they're allies, right? You can seek those people out. To shoot a video on your cell phone can still work just as well. I know that, you know, at different companies you may have different resources, but again, don't think that you have to do this in a huge way and it costs a lot of money, which will explain what our total cost was later. But again, think of this as more of marketing and being able to create an emotional connection with people. That's really what the impact of this video was, and we'll show that video here in the next slide. But what we did is we wanted to make it ally-centric, so we selected about 10 allies and volunteers. And again, we created a script of what we wanted them to say, and we had some posters that they held up and asked them some questions at the end. For them to really, show an emotional response of why they're taking the pledge and why they're an ally. And we created a couple different versions for different situations, but we're going to today show you the spoken version here on the next slide. One thing to note is the gentleman holding the placard that says "Take the Pledge" is our executive sponsor for our Equal organization. Again, having that executive sponsor and that senior leadership buy-in and visible is very key to a successful program. So here is the link to the actual YouTube video, which you can go out to YouTube later. And when the deck is sent out to everybody, you'll have this. You can go out and view it. But we're gonna let you view it right now.
I'm a straight ally because there's no single biggest thing we can do than to create an environment where every member of the LGBT community can bring their entire selves to work.
LGBT issues aren't just social issues, but also human rights issues. And when it comes to the workplace, I believe it's a lot about respect.
Everyone deserves the right to be who they are, love who they want, without fear of harassment, discrimination, or something worse.
I think I've been an ally all my life, but I didn't really know it.
I'm a straight ally because, well, frankly, I guess I just couldn't figure out a reason why not to be. It just makes sense.
I have a lot of friends and family that I've seen hurt, and I'm here to stand up for them.
When one of my best friends first came out, a lot of our social circle shunned him, and that was something that always bothered me.
That's why I'm a straight ally, to essentially fight for my buddy to be himself.
Why should one of my kids not have the same rights and opportunities as his siblings?
I typically like to answer these questions with, like, I mean, why wouldn't you be?
Pledge Week is a time to sign a pledge saying you will stand up for LGBT equality.
The most critical thing that we can do now as an ally is to take a proactive stance in building an inclusive environment.
You simply pledge that you will visibly show your support.
Stand up for equality.
Take the pledge.
June 3rd through the 5th.
I'm an ally.
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 I'm going to take the pledge.
Will you?
Will you?
Will you?
So you can see here the emotional kind of connection that really, I think it was very well done. We did it within 4 hours, all this footage and taping. And everyone was very receptive to the video. We got a lot of great feedback. That went, and most of our email communications that went out, we'll kind of go through where that was linked to that people saw. We had, again, I think this is something that you could do if you could get you use your iPhone, you could get a stand, and you could video record everything and then cut the video as you want. We got a lot of great footage, 4 hours worth of footage that now we can probably create another ally video that's not Pledge Week, because we got a lot of other content from them speaking candidly about why they're an ally. So that's something to consider when creating the footage, because it does take some time to organize. But I think if you have that footage, you can then create something later, so that way you're not reorganizing another group of people. But just something to think about, and I think a nice touch that I think really got a lot of great attention, and again, creating that emotional aspect, because I think people, like the gentleman said in the thing, it's like when I think of these types of questions, it's like, well, why do we even have to ask that, right? So I think, again, it's an educational piece for everyone that I think people can at least relate to if they haven't thought about this before. So moving on into the slide that you can see here, Chicago My Community Newsletter. This is a newsletter that goes out to all 1,300 employees in the building once a week. We started 1 week prior to kind of let everyone know. Again, think about what they've seen so far. They've seen the posters. They've seen the video kiosk playing almost every day if they walk in the building. And then now they're getting to this community newsletter that goes out to everybody. So if they're reading this, they can see now what it is they're going to do. And I think we also are kind of educating people on what Pledge Week actually is, so by the time they actually get to take the pledge, there should be no confusion about what they need to do and why they're doing it. And that was really the whole point here of all the marketing, so everyone could understand, first of all, and here's what the definition of an ally is, here's what the Pledge Week is, and here's why I'm doing it.
We also created table tents that, again, we're in a big office building in Chicago, so we have a cafeteria and we have a lot of common areas on each floor. So we added these table tents to each floor, and we created about 100 of them. The estimated reach was going to be 1,300 people, which is what we have in our building. So on these table tents, again, we have the Ally logo, the mission statement, what Pledge Week was, and the whole Pledge Week schedule, again, to just communicate what Pledge Week was going to be and the importance of being an ally. I had mentioned earlier that our ERGs had signed our banner, and so we have 12 different ERGs, employee resource groups, here in Chicago, and we attended a lot of their individual group meetings to endorse and to actually introduce Pledge Week and get endorsement from them, and we did gain endorsement from all the ERGs. We also had the Gatorade, Tropicana, Quaker, and the IT business unit presidents and groups endorsed Pledge Week, and they sent emails to their teams basically around the time of Pledge Week endorsing it. The morning of when we first started Pledge Week, we had flyers that we distributed in our lobby. You can see I passed them out one of the days, and again, reiterating, communicating and marketing the Ally logo, what the Pledge Week schedule was going to be. So basically, as Corey mentioned, people really knew what they were going to pledge if they wanted to pledge to be an ally. So we actually got ally T-shirts as well. So it was actually kind of fun just giving information to people coming in the morning of the first day of the Pledge Week. And so post-Pledge Week, we created this internal website. We call it PepNet here, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But then the banner that we had everyone sign and the 12 ERGs sign, everyone who pledged to be an ally, we actually, during Pride Month in June, got to display that banner in our lobby. You could see a picture of it above the security desk. So anyone who came into the building would constantly see that banner for the whole month of June. So it was a great way to just display that banner. Again, it was 8 foot wide by 4 foot tall. We also did a thank you poster campaign that we put on every floor, and you could see a picture of that with the picture of a lot of us from the Pledge Week celebration holding the banner, and then just kind of like all the highlights again of all the 475 people who pledged to be an ally. So this is this slide is showing a screenshot of our internal intranet site that is our Chicago Ally site. PepNet, again, is what we call our intranet site here. And so we created this intranet site where this is where we actually had people take the pledge. We wanted to have the first page kind of show just a welcome to the Ally site, and then a section on if they were new to the site, they would do a few things like click these big buttons. One would be take the pledge, look at an Ally, a welcome packet, which had a lot of information on education about being an ally, and then we wanted people to share their story as well, their ally story. We also have a section that is a spotlight where we have our executive sponsors basically be a spotlight, an ally spotlight, and kind of give a longer version of why they are an ally. So this is where it's a good way for us to actually just kind of keep track of how many people are becoming new allies. We can send messages to our allies from this internal site. And that's, this is just kind of like the one screenshot of it. We have a lot of different links also. You can see a little tiny link to the video that we just played, and then some resource and other links that people can go to. We've had a lot of questions about what this Pledge Week costs, so here's the cost. This slide just details out how much we actually spent, the total cost for all our Pledge Week activities before and after and during. So the swag bag, you can see the badge buddies, the ally cards, those are kind of more of the higher cost of Pledge Week. One thing to note, though, is we did get a lot of things free. So the banner, as I mentioned before, we partnered with an LGBT company in Chicago. It was a great partnership with them. They donated this banner to us. The video production was in-house. The guest speaker obviously didn't take anything for coming in to speak at our ally celebration, and then the graphic design, we had someone in-house actually do that. So there's just creative ways to actually kind of execute this. So there's just we're going to be sending this out to everyone just so you kind of see what we spent it on, but I think Chris wants to add to this.
I was just going to make a couple of points too. For the things that did cost money and that were not free, there's ways to cut that as well. So for example, our swag bag, I think the important pieces were the badge buddy, ally card, and welcome letters, so people could be educated. We had that tote bag to, it has the logo on it. They can carry that around at work or outside of work. But if that was the tote bag itself was our biggest expense. So without that, it was definitely less than half of that amount, I would say.
And if you didn't want to have food and drink,
right,
obviously that cuts it down. So I think the key takeaway here is that this doesn't have to cost a lot of money, right? I think a lot of people shy away when they see a program like this. Is like, wow, how much did it cost? But I think you can do it on the cheap and still have a very effective program, because remember, the keys here are visibility and education. And I think it's just printing out those materials and making sure that it gets into the right people. I think that's really the key. And use the people in your organization and seek those people out that maybe have a creative talent that is an ally that would be able to help you.
Yep. So we're now going to move on to challenges and next steps. So for these, some of these were challenges for us. Some of these may not be challenges for you, depending on what kind of program that you want to execute. So for example, recruiting an ally team. As I said earlier, that's really, really important to be able to execute your program smoothly and quickly. We sort of had a team in place that we had used the prior year on a smaller kind of engagement, so it didn't take us a lot of time to get an ally subcommittee together, but you may want to build in time for that if you don't have one already. And another challenge for us was executing in a short time frame. We knew once we started it, we had about 4 months for the time of our execution deadline. So the ways we kind of worked towards that or met that challenge was we were very focused. As I said earlier, and we talked about, this was just a Chicago program. I've been to presentations at Out and Equal before where companies did global programs that took about 2 years to complete. So when we focused just on our own office, it was about 4 months. We also had a very clear vision all along. Corey and I met earlier in the year. Last year, we definitely had a vision of what we wanted to accomplish, and we just joined in with our subcommittee team to help execute that vision. I also think that setting aggressive deadlines is very important. We did that for ourselves all along the way, so that was very helpful. And then again, having volunteers also key to execute. Finally, as far as this short time frame piece, is the marketing campaign was definitely key. As Corey mentioned before, by the time it came around to Pledge Week, everybody knew what it was about, what they wanted to get out of it. They were basically just lining up to take the pledge. Another challenge is working with large groups. Kind of common sense. You know, sometimes it's hard to work with a big group of people. So as I mentioned before, what we ended up doing is breaking this big group into smaller sub-teams. Leaders of those sub-teams would execute their own specific tasks. On that issue. Now, challenges of working with offices in different regions. So we actually did start out working with one of our other offices at PepsiCo, thinking we would work on a national program. And what we ended up doing is just focusing on ourselves because we knew we wanted to execute something in a matter of a few months. So what we did is that we just did our own Chicago program. It still worked out with our overall National Steering Committee vision, because what they wanted is to be able to have a program where other offices could learn from it, pick and choose different pieces of a program. So by doing our own program, we were contributing to this playbook idea that they had. And also, what you may run into in working with people in different offices or different regions particularly, is that you may have different, as we've talked about before in Chicago, it's maybe more progressive. The allies were very, wanting to be very visible. You may have other offices where people are allies, but they're not as maybe out as allies. They're not as comfortable, showing that they are allies or that they're supporting the LGBT community. So an example that you can do, what we did to kind of meet this challenge, was with our logo. Here in Chicago, we really wanted to have that rainbow logo with the ally word. We wanted to have the rainbow circle around it so that it was very visible and very obvious to people what kind of ally we were, or that the allies were. And what we did for offices that may not want to do that, we sort of had a compromise where, other offices could use the logo and they could just have a solid blue circle around the word ally instead of using the rainbow if they didn't want to have the rainbow. Finally, the next steps for us, soon after we started the program, there was word of mouth immediately with other offices. So we were on conference calls with other offices just describing what we were doing so that they could learn from it. And then this year, we're trying to hopefully rolling it out nationally, and eventually it would be great if we could roll this out into international.
Yeah, so I think I know we've got some questions on this in the chat in terms of, it was done just in Chicago. Now, Chris kind of explained a little bit about the rationale behind that. So I think our National Steering Committee ultimately wants to have a unified national ally program, which I know companies like Bank of America have, and other companies that I know we've been at that have presented similar types of programs at Out and Equal. So that's our vision, and I think a little bit more of a 1 to 2 year goal for us, but I think we wanted to get some big wins in terms of what are some of the types of things that work within our locations, because all of our locations are slightly different, obviously, in geography and makeup of, different types of individuals. So I think the thought was that Chicago is, we operated and created this program, and then we could put together a best practices, almost like a program in a box kind of concept, where we could then just send this whole package and information in terms of here's all of the templates that you'll need for the logo and for the ally card or for the badge buddy and the welcome letter, and then you can customize it to your location and then roll it out. Here's kind of the time frame that we think would work. So that's really the concept of this program for Pledge Week. However, I know that in terms of next steps, I know we have another question on here about kind of what's next and how you continue engaging your allies in ongoing programming. So that's where we're at this year. Again, here in Chicago, we have a strong ally team, and I know in other locations they have, ally teams as well. So I think the goal here for 2015 is to develop another program here in Chicago, but I think the longer-term goal, like I said at the very beginning, is to then develop a national program and make it a lot stronger so everyone can execute it around the same time frame instead of just locations here and there. But I know other corporations have different views on this. I know, just think of your timing, because obviously, as Chris mentioned on one of the previous slides, of involving more and more people, which I think is great, and I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing, because I think that's a great thing. It just adds time on top of that, because you have different opinions, and obviously this isn't our day job, so we are working outside of our hours and fitting this in on top of our regular jobs to lead. So it's tough to get momentum and get decisions made quickly with a large team, as Chris outlined. So I think the key here is to making sure that people that are on the team have clear vision and you can align on that. I think if you can set that tone up front and have a few people to kind of create that vision, and then find a way to then execute it and roll it out in different locations if you have more than one location.
So there's another question I see about, did we experience any backlash on all the communications? Largely no. I think that it was spread out over a couple of months, or maybe a month and a half, and it was different kind of mediums. I do think at the end, like maybe the week before the event itself, when we were sending all the emails, for example, we had each ERG send an email, and the different business units sending emails. So you may be someone who's involved in 4 different ERGs and a member of the BU, so you got the message 5 times. Maybe I saw one comment about, sending out so many emails, but largely we didn't really get any feedback about that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, obviously you have to be cognizant of your location, and we completely understand that at the very beginning when I said one size does not fit all. We are in Chicago, we are in a more liberal environment, but we completely understand that there are locations around the country that definitely do not have that same look and feel. So I think, again, there are, depending on your situation, we presented what we did here in Chicago, but you can take bits and pieces of this and even modify what we did, right? I think that's the beauty of what we presented today, is you can take away small little nuggets. If you want to, just put those into place and start building awareness, because I think, again, that's the key. But I think, with any type of program like this, you're probably going to find someone along the way that doesn't necessarily agree with your viewpoint, just like with any type of LGBT program you put on at your company. So I think it's key to make sure you have leadership buy-in, as well as making sure that your communications team and legal teams are looped in, so you're prepared for situations that do arise, because you probably will have some that arise. But luckily here in Chicago, again, it's Chicago, but we didn't have too many. So I think we're ready to move into the Q&A portion. I think we got about 10 minutes left. I know there is a list of questions. Pat, do you just want to go through, want us to go through the questions?
Great job. It's been good information. A lot of people have been coming in with questions. You talked a little bit about PepNet, but how, as you roll out these in other locations, are you talking about how do we link up all these allies, or is there a way to kind of do that online with the pledges? What's kind of the thought of that virtual ally network?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, at a large company, we have the luxury of having an intranet site kind of framework set up already for groups like ours to then create our own intranet page. Understand that not everyone has that luxury. The vision behind obtaining information about the allies, if they allow us to do that, is to make sure we have a database of who's an ally and allow us to then message out in the future any communications, as well as, talk about future programming. And then the goal is to, PepNet is designed where you can have a larger kind of homepage, and then underneath that homepage have kind of sub-communities or sub-pages. So for instance, the vision would be to have a corporate ally page, and then underneath that would have a Chicago chapter, a Plano chapter, and let's say a New York chapter, or a California chapter, then you can start plugging in those different chapters that have an ally base. I think that creates, an opportunity for those individuals to communicate with each other, as well as then make that their kind of one-stop shop for any type of educational opportunity that they want to share with their colleagues, their boss, their friends, even if that's where they choose. But I think that's the larger vision that we have, and that's kind of what we started here in Chicago.
Great. And I know I've seen one company that uses badges on their intranet, and basically if you're with different clubs, organizations, kind of where you're located, all that. And I know that they created an ally badge that goes along with your profile when that first comes up, so people can explore it. So there's some really good work going on that. What are you doing since the pledge drive? What's happening? How are you keeping them engaged? What are you kind of sending out to them to keep them going?
Yeah, so a number of things. So right after Pledge Week ended, we sent out we had all their email addresses. So the beauty of this is we could then send out a communication to them, thanking them for taking the pledge and talking about next steps, right? So it's one thing to have this great program, and this is kind of the same thing that happens with a lot of our employee resource groups. You have this great program, and it was great, and everyone's engaged, and then the event ends, and then next week you go back to your desk and you focus on your job, and then it's like memory loss. It's gone. Well, our intention was to make sure that we were visible at different points in time throughout the year. So what we wanted to do is after the program, and what we did is sent out a communication to everyone. Thanking them for taking the pledge, and then outlining next steps that they could do. And these were all outlined in our welcome letter. But again, showing your visibility, hanging that ally card that we gave you, wearing your badge buddy around. Again, talking to the pledge. If you hear someone saying something, please speak up. Right. So all these things that they can do post Pledge Week, now that they have kind of identified themselves as an ally. That was in June. We have then updated material on the PepNet site that kind of hosts different ally spotlight material, as well as has allowed people to share their ally story, which I think has been kind of crucial to see what other allies are saying. That was our first big program. So this year we're already in the process of creating what our next big program is. As well as then try to get other locations to join in and roll something out a little more on a national level, if not on a regional level. So again, this evolves, right? You don't have to jump in and do something huge to start with. Before Pledge Week, I think Chris maybe mentioned we had a panel to talk about kind of LGBT 101. And that was kind of our first kind of putting our toe in the water of kind of ally programming. Then we went into this Pledge Week. And then in 2015, we, how can we beat this? What we did last year, we got almost half the building to sign the pledge. Now we know who those people are. How do we continue to advance that conversation and engage those colleagues of ours? So that's kind of the stage that we're in now. But we do want to continue building on it, and not just maybe have one event in each year, but to then pulse our allies throughout the year to make sure that they're engaged and continue this education platform that we have.
Have you seen any change in attendance or membership in the ERG?
Interestingly, we've done a lot of different things with our meetings. We used to have a meeting once a month, which I think was a little bit overkill. So we went to once every other month, and I think that helped. But I do think we've seen an uptick in the number of allies that attend our meetings. So we've had a larger number in general in 2014 of just the number of members that attend our meetings. I think we've gotten up to 60 people that come to our meeting just in Chicago. I think we used to have about 25 to 30. But I think we've seen a lot more, uptick in allies attending the meetings. But because three of us in this room on this call have been visible, we've had a lot of stories that have come out of this. And I think I mentioned a couple of them in San Francisco. But we've heard a lot of interesting stories of, as a result of someone having an ally card in their cube, this employee that's been with the company for 4 years has not felt that she can properly bring her whole self to work. And so as a result of this program, and one of the allies had their card, and it was someone on her team, this person felt that she could actually come and speak with this individual about that's great that you're an ally. And she shared her story with that individual about 3 months after the actual pledge week took place. And we've heard about 4 or 5 other stories that have come out about that. And to me, if you can get one story out of this in terms of someone feeling like they can actually be comfortable and be who they are and bring their whole self to work, to me, that's worth all this time and energy and the $1,600 that we spent. That's completely worth it for that one person to feel like they are a valuable individual and they can hang photos at their desk of that person and their partner or their family and be who they want to be. And I think that's ultimately important.
That's great. Those are good stories. Go ahead, Annie.
One other thing about people coming out, personally, since I'm a straight ally and I'd been part of the presentation that we did at the Out and Equal conference in November, I was talking about it to a contractor that I work with who's based in New York, but I'm based in Chicago, and it was so great. Like the week of the conference, it was the day before I was going to leave, and he actually came out to me, and then I was able to present the conference, the pledge week to my team, my boss who's on the call, was fine with us, me presenting to our team, and then that individual actually then came out to the whole team in New York, and it was such a great feeling. I mean, I guess I'm your typical ally, and I feel really, really great when someone kind of comes out. One other thing that we do I attend all the ERG meetings for this LGBT group, the Equal group, and there's an ally corner that we've implemented in the meetings that is great because every time we have a meeting, there's another ally that kind of comes out and kind of shares their story about being an ally and why they want to show their visible support.
Great, and we're getting a couple of last-minute questions kind of coming in, and we're kind of getting close on our time. But what I'm going to do is, for everybody, I will send out the slides and their email addresses to do that, because there's questions about how do you get outside the U.S., how do we do for those who are challenging LGBT rights in the workplace. But let me give you each a chance to make kind of a closing comment as we get through here, and then we'll do the follow-up on that. So, Corey, you want to make any closing comments?
Yeah, and I'll speak on behalf of the group here. I think, again, at the very beginning, I just want to level set in terms of, understanding that every situation is different. I think the key thing here is just to explain what we did here in Chicago, because a lot of times you go into a presentation or a workshop, and they give you a great high-level information, but I think what most of us want is when you're going to a workshop, you want to get some key takeaways that you can then take away and implement at your organization. And that's really what we wanted to get across today in this workshop and this presentation is, explaining first of all what we did and then giving you some key nuggets to take away. I think some keys that are important, in my opinion, are visibility. I think if you're not visible in your workplace, then you're really not there. And I think that's one key. I think we wanted to make sure that, being an ally, you need to be visible and showing that you're a visible ally. And that was one of the big takeaways from all of the items that we gave in the swag bag, as well as education. I think educating people, I think it's important, first of all, to define what an ally is and why it's important to be an ally. So those key things, I think, were important takeaways from the program, as well as having senior leadership and senior management buy-in. Again, it all starts at the top. If you don't have your key senior managers involved and have them supporting you, this could fall apart. I think you need that buy-in. Because if people can see the people at the top buying into the program, those other employees and colleagues are more likely to, take a stand and be with you throughout this process. And then building a great team and having those resources, understanding that it's not the same in every situation, but I think having your core team and having those people that have a vision that is similar to yours, or at least similar in terms of wanting to do something. Maybe your ideas are a little bit different, but having that passion to lead something like this is what it takes to get it done. And then lastly, a marketing campaign. It's one thing to have Pledge Week, but if you don't have a marketing campaign and explain to people what this is about, I think it falls apart. I think you need something to hold it all together, leading up to it, going, during it, and then after it with what we had with the thank you campaign and all of the PepNet site that we have and all the information that we have, as well as having another program in the following year. So again, we're really excited about what we did, and we're really happy to share that insight with you. And, on behalf of Chris, Annie, and I, we really thank you for listening in, as well as then we'll sending out our email addresses. If you have any other follow-up questions, we'd be happy to, shoot you back an email. And I think the deck is going to be shared out as well.
Definitely, and I want to thank the three of you. You've done a great job, and it really is nuts and bolts kind of things to hand out, and I think that that's a great start for groups to work on. When we close out the call, there will be a short survey, so please give us your feedback. So we thank you for attending today and want to hear what your thoughts are. Next week, we'll be doing our next virtual summit. It's going to be on Brand You, bringing your fabulous, authentic self to work. As always, if you can support Out and Equal, there's opportunities to do that, and remember the summit's coming up. We start all over again on our RFP process the end of the month, but try to make your plans to come to Dallas. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.